My late Aunt Gaetana was a seamstress, and she reminded me often that if you want to make good clothes and not blow your budget, you should always measure twice and cut once. And the whole point of the Green Ribbon Panel was to bring together a wide variety of voices and interests to ensure that we measured twice and cut once, to get the discussions, the issues, the problems, the potential pitfalls and opportunities out on the table in those discussions so that we could come up with valuable insights and recommendations for public policymakers. And we've got two great representatives today representing the not-for-profit advocacy world. We've got our dear friend Jeff Beach, President and CEO of Asthma Canada. And from the key stakeholder group and partner in all of this of labor, we have John Ives, who's the former Chief of Staff, Office of the President of the Power Workers Union. So let's kick it off. Jeff, you want to tell us a little bit about the Asthma Society and why it is that you were interested in being part of this and what you think you got out of it?
Sure. Thank you very much, Rocco. And the Asthma Canada organization was founded over 50 years ago as a nonprofit organization to represent the voice and the interests of people living with asthma. Asthma is a very prevalent, common chronic disease that affects just under 5 million people in Canada. And so we are here to provide education, to do advocacy on matters that matter to people living with asthma, and to fund and participate in asthma research and encourage patients to be involved in research as well. So our involvement with the Green Ribbon Panel began in Ontario when there was a movement underfoot to shut down the coal-generated electricity plants. They're a major contributor to air pollution. If you recall, go back 20, 30 years ago.
I lived with smog days, 40, 50 a time in summer.
Over 50 a year in some years. And so that was a major contributor to air pollution and the air quality in Ontario and in cities right across the province. So we got involved to add that health message because for people living with asthma, we know that asthma can be exacerbated by environmental issues, indoors and outdoors, and air quality matters. So clean energy, clean air, that's our connection. And that's why we decided to get involved and contribute that message and ensure that message stays at the forefront of the work of the Green Ribbon Panel.
John, tell us a little bit about the Power Workers and the quantum of the membership and also how big these massive refurbishment projects have been for your membership.
Well, the Power Workers Union represents about 19,000 workers in the electricity sector. About half of those members are actually in the nuclear sector, working at Bruce Power, Ontario Power Generation, CNL. We believe that we bring a unique perspective to the whole process of building and the electricity sector. We were around, obviously, when the coal plants were removed out of Ontario's sector,
right,
and replaced with nuclear power. Nuclear power has been the backbone of our industry and our sector for the last 25 years and beyond. Even today, we're still generating more than 50% of our power using nuclear energy. And that is what's going to keep Ontario's air clean and is going to keep our members working and generations to come.
Well, and it's also a fundamental basis of our economy and everything else that's built on power. We come into our homes and offices every day and we switch on the light and we don't realize everything that's involved in making that happen.
The reliability of Ontario's electrical system is second to none. We have been able to, using nuclear power again as a base load for producing electricity, keep the lights on in Ontario. The public industry turns on a switch and they get light. And as long as we can continue to do that, then we're on the right path.
John, I want to push on and underscore something that you said, that when coal was shut down, it could only be shut down because nuclear power actually filled most of that gap. We do talk about other renewables, and they're an important part of the mix, but the lion's share got done by nuclear. Is that the case?
Very much so. Nuclear power, when coal was shut down, nuclear power took over. I think it was over 60% of the production of electricity in Ontario. Without nuclear power, we would not have been able to shut down the coal plants.
Right. And without eliminating the coal plants, to your point, Jeff, we'd still be living, and we had a few smog days this past summer, but that was due to the massive forest fires and not through the GHG of industry and energy production.
Exactly. And that's, I think those two factors work really well together in that we didn't lose a step when it comes to the meeting the demand and being efficient in terms of delivering energy where we need it and electricity to our homes and businesses, but we also cleaned the air, we cleaned the environment. And to your point about the wildfires and the smoke that travels great distances, these relate back to clean energy and the need for better environmental policies as well, because we're seeing the effects of climate change. The wildfires were never an issue for us here in the GTA, for example. When, looking outside in the summer and seeing a cloudy haze of smoke does remind us of those smog days that we were talking about. It's a different type of air pollution, and it can be deadly, and it can lead to people having potentially fatal asthma exacerbations. So that's another underscore to the need for these clean energy policies, and that we need to continue driving forward. We haven't gone far enough.
Right. John, you made the point that the power workers bring a unique perspective, and certainly with the diverse voices around the table, whether it was from academics, whether it was from workers, whether it's from First Nations, having those different perspectives on the table, how do you think that ends up with a better end product?
Well, I think when everyone is included, and when I say everyone, I'm talking about suppliers, I'm talking about First Nations, labor, business, the operators, and the government. When everybody is pulling in the same direction because it's the right direction to pull in, it makes it much easier to get things done. We don't have anyone right now really standing up and saying, nuclear power, we don't need it. Nobody's saying that anymore. We need nuclear power. Everyone agrees with that. Now it's just a matter of getting on and doing it.
Right. Well, that is a very powerful statement. And Jeff, in terms of inclusion in the process, was there any surprise for you, whether positive or negative, out of involvement in that process?
Well, I think for us, it really sometimes it does surprise people when I tell them that I'm part of the Green Ribbon Panel, because that's not my background, and I don't represent the workforce or the companies like Bruce Power that are involved in energy production. But once I explain our role, it's very clear. And I think for us, the surprise is that it has opened up a whole new realm of partnership for us. We, as a nonprofit organization, and you know this, having been a nonprofit CEO in your life, we rely on partnerships. We lean into them very much so. And so we're a relatively small organization from a headcount perspective, but we have a huge impact. And a lot of what we do is mobilized through partnerships. So by being involved with the Green Ribbon Panel, it's just increased our exposure, our ability to partner with different people from different sectors that are represented. And I think it's really solidified our position as an organization that's not only advocating for direct health-related needs of Canadians living with asthma, like access to medication, for example, which is a big part of our advocacy effort, but it's given us more depth because the clean energy initiatives really do make a difference for people living with asthma. And asthma is a disease where we don't quite understand yet the definitive cause. We know there are a number of factors that lead to, some of them are genetic, but environmental causes are definitely on the table. We know that people living in areas that are very industrialized are more likely to have asthma, more likely to have difficulties with other lung health conditions. People in First Nations communities are more likely to develop asthma than those who are living in other communities. So there are a lot of factors that go into the disease itself and how we diagnose it and how we treat it. But the environmental factors are extremely important. And I think for us, that's been, maybe wasn't the course of action when Asthma Canada was founded, but it's become a central, integral part of what we do in our advocacy program.
Wonderful. John, one of the key themes of the Green Ribbon panel and the whole argument around nuclear energy is that as we build out a strong economy, we want that economy to be sustainable and we want it to be inclusive. So it's not just about the factories or end users, it's in the production, in the construction and production of power. How are we involving, helping, and growing our local communities? And I know that the power workers do a lot of work with First Nations through training effort, et cetera. How has that been accelerated through the refurbishment process and beyond?
Well, I think the numbers are greater than 250 companies in Canada are part of the nuclear supply chain. These are Canadian companies with factories and offices in Ontario, feeding the Ontario nuclear program. With that, we're in the communities across the province. So being part of those communities gives our employers and ourselves a very good window into what is going on in those areas, whether it's working with First Nations, working with women in trades, working with anybody that has an interest in growing the economy and working together. We're always open to doing that. And I think the Green Ribbon panel has done a remarkable job at doing that, bringing together ourselves with Asthma Canada, with our employers, and with all of these smaller companies. We're all part of the same communities, and being part of those communities allows us to work together to something that is a common goal.
For many years, and certainly when I was a kid going through school here in Southern Ontario, our guidance counselors were almost always biased towards university. You know, if you're a smart person, we're going to work to get you in university. Not quite so smart, we'll find a community college that'll take you. And if you can't do that, well, we'll talk to someone in the trades. And the net result of that is that my plumber can buy and sell me 5 times over. He's got a great business. And there are some fantastic jobs and futures on which people can buy houses and build a future for themselves and their families. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that in the perspective from your union.
I'm an example. I started my apprenticeship at what is now Bruce Power in 1980. I was an electrical apprentice. I finished school after grade 12. Halfway through grade 13, and started my apprenticeship. I was on a track to go to university, but the trades had a calling for me. I like building things. I like completing things. I like what it meant. I think there's a huge number of students and young people in Ontario who would love the opportunity to make a career similar to what my career was, 45 years in the industry. Wow. And trades is a way of doing it. It doesn't limit you. I think for too long, the people in the school system look down upon the trades. I think that's changing. I think it's changed over the last 10 years. The current governments, both provincial and federal, have done a remarkable job at promoting skilled trades as being a viable alternative to go into university. And I think it's about time that happened.
Well, and beyond a change in attitude, is it fair to say that the work and the environment of a skilled labor has changed remarkably over the last 40 years, and the use of computers and the emphasis on safety and training in a way that's made the workplace very different than it was 40 years ago?
I wouldn't want to say that because I made it for the last 40 years, but
No, but you helped improve it.
safety is a huge, huge part of the industry. It's a huge part of the construction industry in general, but it's a huge part of the nuclear industry. Whether it's the safety preparedness drills that Bruce Power is planning in the next few weeks up in the community, involving the community and all of the medical and hospital people up there. And from that to the actual on-job safety, to the nuclear safety, to the safety of our nuclear plants is incredibly important. And obviously, over the last 45 years, technology has changed in a huge way. We used to pull a cable from one end of the nuclear plant to the other that was about 2 inches, 3 inches in diameter. Nowadays, that's just done with a fiber optic cable. So it's, the technology is huge and the difference is huge.
Right.
Jeff, very often in the environmental movement and in the healthcare community, for many years, nuclear was kind of looked at askance. That was seen as dangerous. You worry about implosions, the 3 Mile Island. You worry about Fukushima. Worry about what's happening with waste. And now, healthcare-oriented advocacy groups like yourselves and a growing number of environmentalists are seeing nuclear as a key part, that no energy is perfect. Don't let perfection get in the way of very good, and this is a very good option. And from your perspective, when you talk to your stakeholders and members and donors, do they think it's weird that you're part of this and supporting the ongoing growth of the industry?
Not particularly, no. I think because, the perception, the public perception of the nuclear industry has definitely shifted. I grew up not far from 3 Mile Island, across Lake Erie from there. And, the way that people view the nuclear industry and sector and safety record of the reliability and so forth has changed immensely. So I think people may sometimes question, why are we at the table? Why am I part of this green ribbon panel? But once I explain that and the benefits that nuclear and other forms of clean energy bring to the environment and ultimately to the health and well-being of Canadians, it's a no-brainer really for us. And I think we're very comfortable taking this position that we do because we want what's best for the constituents of our disease and other lung health conditions as well. And so we know that nuclear power is reliable, safe, clean, and that's really what matters at the end of the day to us.
And speaking of other health, lung-related and otherwise, I was recently at a luncheon looking at the progress that's been made in terms of medical isotopes that are only possible at scale with commercial nuclear reactors. And is that an area, is the medical isotope area something that your group finds of interest, and what drives that?
Yeah, definitely. It's of interest. We're part of a strong lung health community that involves other organizations that certainly when we look at the advancements that have been made in nuclear medicine, as you say, that's not possible without the size and scale of the operations that we have here. And Canada, a lot of people are surprised to know that Canada is the leader in that area. And so we're saving lives, every day. because of the capacity that the nuclear industry has provided in terms of the isotope production. So that's extremely important to us here in Canada. It's important to our economy, and it's important to the health and well-being of people across the world. And we recognize that. And there is definitely a health economy message to our involvement in this as well, because diseases like asthma and COPD are a big cost center for the healthcare system. Asthma is one of the leading reasons why people visit emergency rooms and are hospitalized, especially for young people. And so if we can create a safer environment and driven largely by clean energy, that will help at the end of the day reduce those costs. If we can help people understand how their indoor and outdoor environments affect diseases like asthma and COPD, we can help them stay healthier, more productive, out of the emergency room, so that people who need those services for other reasons can be there.
John, in this in the first tranche of the major projects office announcements was included the initiative ongoing that the province of Ontario has been a key driver of, as OPG, of the SMRs, of the small modular reactors at Darlington. Clearly, your members are part of that key initiative. What are you hearing? What are you seeing on that front?
I think the SMRs are going to be a very important technological advance for Ontario, and because of that, Canada and probably the world. I think they're scalable, which is going to open up the opportunity to move them and put them in what would be previously considered non-nuclear zones, if you will, where you can place them in just where you need hundreds of megawatts as opposed to thousands of megawatts, which is what you get with a full-size station. I think our larger population centers still need the large nuclear plants, but because of the size and hopefully, and this has yet to be borne out because, as you know, we're in the process of building 4 new ones, the cost and the ability to actually build these small plants is going to allow nuclear to be moved across Canada, across the world.
Yeah. And it's a great point you say that it can be placed in places that you might not have thought of before because of the scale. Help people to understand, because I know the power work is also very involved in transmission. And, the farther the distance of transmission, the more power you lose, and then there are all kinds of complications. So as opposed to building out a bigger grid, more complex grid, using up more territory, being able to place that power source right by the mining need or a small town is a huge advantage, potentially.
Yes, transmission constrains how much power you can put through a wire.
Right.
So the capacity of the transmission system is not infinite. There's a very finite amount that you can put through there. Right now, a lot of the power we have in Ontario and the Ontario system was moving from north to south. With the Ring of Fire, hopefully moving forward in the next few years, we're going to need power moving from south to north. The transmission system isn't built for that. So being able to put together to install an SMR in northern Ontario would do exactly the same thing as building more wires, but it's much more cost effective, I think, and much more able to produce what you need where you need it.
And over and above our needs and our potential uses, it's also the case that a number of foreign governments, the Poles, the Dutch, and others have been filing through Darlington, looking at that and expressing a great deal of interest in potentially being part and being export customers of Ontario and Canada in the production of SMRs.
Yeah, Ontario and Canada has been at the forefront of nuclear power for years. Our CANDU nuclear reactors enable us to produce the isotopes, the medical isotopes that you were speaking about earlier. But on top of that, SMRs are going to allow us to stay at the forefront of nuclear technology. We're going to be the first country that puts together a grid-scale SMR. And assuming we're going to be successful, and everything says it's going to be successful, there's no reason to think it won't be, we're going to be able to export our expertise around the world and in today's environment, give ourselves some energy security and sovereignty over our own power.
Right. And is it the case, I mean, it's interesting when we look at big projects in the past, whether it's, transit, for instance, in Toronto, that's always been debated, because we've been in start-stop mode for years. We'll do it for a while, there'll be a big project, and then nothing for years, and then people are expected to just pick up and be experts in this. For the last several years, because of the refurbishments at both Darlington and Bruce, we've built that supply chain that you've talked about. We've trained incredible members, and there's a level of expertise to pour into that next stage in a way that we haven't had before.
I think Canadian workers are among the most talented workers in the world.
Period, full stop.
And I think they will rise to whatever challenge you give them. But this is an opportunity to create lifetime careers for a huge number of our young people, a huge number of new Canadians, and a huge number of our First Nations. And you look at the proposed nuclear build-out across Ontario, and the return on investment, to use a business phrase, is going to be huge. If we're able to put all of this stuff together and get these projects off the ground and running, we have created an economy that is going to be the envy of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I actually love the fact that you used return on investment, and there would have been a time in the history of labor relations in Canada where it was seen as a dirty word, but that part of the benefit of collaboration and cooperation over time is, yes, you've got to defend the interests of your members, but understanding how everyone wins in this. Because if the employer is strong and society is strong, then workers are going to do better.
Yes, 100%. The better off our employers are, the better our employers do, the better off we are when it comes to the negotiating table.
Right.
And health is part of that return on investment, right? If we're talking about financial and economic return on investment, but health is a key part of that. And a healthy workforce is a strong workforce. And we know that if we can help more people deal with lung health conditions, they'll be more productive, they will live better, they'll have better jobs. I mean, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. And that's not even mentioning it's the humane thing to do. That's just as fellow human beings, we owe that to our fellow citizens to create the best environment we can.
Exactly. And I think more and more Canadians are realizing that the environment is something that we can't ignore, that, we're seeing evidence of climate change. We're seeing evidence of what carbon fuel emissions have done to our country, to our planet, and we need to come up with solutions for cleaner energy. And having the fossil fuels being phased out is only possible if we have a strong energy sector to be able to supply the demand for electric vehicles and electrification of manufacturing and so forth. So it does truly all go hand in hand.
So when people talk about the goal of either being, maintaining, or becoming an energy superpower, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think for me, it's two things. One is the economic resilience and sovereignty of our energy sector and the return on investment that comes from that. But it's also about building healthy communities and healthy Canadians, because if we are an economic superpower, it's only going to be possible through clean energy. And that is something that will truly change the world for people living with lung health conditions and prevent some of these lung health conditions as well. So I think it's both. It's a combination of better health for people, for all Canadians, but it's also the strong economy, and those things are intertwined.
For you, John?
Independence and sovereignty, and security. Again, I think we need to ensure that electricity is a basic human right, that people have the ability to turn on the switch, to heat their homes, to heat their water, to cook, and to be able to use electricity in our industries in a manner that is sustainable, that allows for clean air, that allows for no emissions, that attacks climate change.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And to our listeners and viewers out there, this is an opportunity for you to have your say. Reach out to the Green Ribbon Panel. Reach out to your members of parliament, your members of provincial legislatures. If you see energy as a key building block to all of our futures, we need you to increasingly become part of that consensus our members have been talking about in building and maintaining Ontario and Canada as an energy superpower. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.